The content in this podcast may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back, sup.
Welcome back. There's a lot of weird shit going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
That is just, everybody can agree.
Yeah.
And so I generally pay a lot more attention to what's going on, probably like in America, because that's where we are. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the wars are a little scary, and I pay little attention to that, but that kind of actually gets to be a little bit dark. Like, I'd rather watch a horror film and go to sleep than turn on the news.
And deal with the real world.
Yeah. The other day, I was actually talking to someone on Threads, and they were talking about the banning of TikTok. And I didn't know this was actually going into effect. Mm-hmm. I thought that was just a thing everyone was talking about. They're
basically forcing TikTok to sell to an American investor.
Right. But again, I had no idea of any of this. And so I commented to that person, and I was like, wait, what happened? And they're like, turn on the news. And I was like, the news is scarier than most scary movies. Like, I'd just rather watch Freddy Krueger. Like, that's way less likely. So in the news lately has been this crazy conspiracy theory about like what happened to Kate Middleton. Okay. And it ranges from, and I'm not laughing because it's not actually funny. Basically, they released a statement saying that she was hospitalized, she's recovering, and I don't really know the full extent to like what happened to her.
I've seen like bits and pieces.
Right. So, and again, I didn't actually see the post that they released. I just, again.
The funny thing is that you brought it up, and I actually did some research on it because I was going to bring it up as a topic.
Because it's interesting.
So it's interesting.
Because it's funny because at first people are like, botched surgery, and I'm like, what? Like, and so there was a photo of her that got released from the Kensington Palace, and it's very evidently, very clearly photoshopped, unless she is an alien.
Is it the one where people presume that it's AI due to the fact that when you're dealing with the AI generated images, AI gets certain things weird.
Like 3 fingers instead of 5.
Yeah, there'll be like a floating finger. Can't. One of the ones that I've seen a lot is it can't get aircraft.
No, I was trying to do a post today for St. Patty's.
Yeah.
And it kept putting the lime outside of the drink, which I was like, I don't even care about the freaking drink. You can remove the drink, but it just kept putting the lime. And I was like, okay, never mind.
Well, with aircraft, it gets like the body of the aircraft, but it can't figure out like wings, and it can't figure out tires.
Right.
And so that, especially for AI, it's a real easy way to see it. But I remember seeing the picture that you're talking about, because weren't they saying that the son's fingers were like in a weird angle?
Yeah, and also people were pointing out that her arms, like, they just logistically cannot be that long. And, you know, it's so funny because I don't think I would have noticed at all. Like, if I had saw that photo, I would have just thought,
no, half
she's
the time,
hugging her kids, happy.
Half the time, you don't even think to, like, question it.
No, I don't zoom in on people's pictures and, like, look at their fingers and shit. So again, it started off kind of funny, and at first I wasn't interested because I was like, well, she got a botched surgery, like, she go in? And then I'm thinking, I cannot imagine Kate Middleton going in and getting, like, a BBL, you know? Like, and she's beautiful, obviously, like, she doesn't really need surgery, I don't think. So then it became, people are saying and theorizing that she's in a coma, and they just don't want to release it, and I'm like, well, why would they lie? But again, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies around that family.
I'm not the biggest follower on this specific conspiracy theory.
Same.
I can assume that maybe there was a botched AI photo or something edited and thrown together. Because you have to remember that in a lot of like royal families, everything has to look perfect.
But why?
And if you're in like a recovery stage and you're just not looking super hot or whatever, in that sense, like for PR images and all these things, they might keep you behind closed doors until you're fully recovered.
What do you think's going on with her?
I mean, with the statement that they had released was that she had a surgery, an abdominal surgery.
So it's honestly probably like...
She just might be recovering. I mean, with that much paparazzi all the time, I couldn't imagine being famous or anything and having to deal with people constantly watching you, almost like a horror movie, you know, like having a stalker. It's just all these people at all times.
I
Like,
really
imagine
am
the
so
strangers.
paranoid.
Imagine the strangers, but instead of people trying to kill you, it's
They're just
literally
trying to
people just trying to
photograph
snap
you.
your photo.
I would hate that. I really love that I can just get out of bed, roll over, and go to Target. I would really hate if people were photographing me at Target
It'd be awful.
after I like my makeup from yesterday still on, and I'm just like,
I've seen one of the big ones I remember with the paparazzi. It's always the one of Tobey Maguire in his car, and he's like trying to make a turn, and there's so much flash photography going on that he can't see. He can't see the
that would
oncoming
drive me
cars.
crazy.
And he's like yelling at the paparazzi, and he's like, "Get out of the way! I can't see. Like, you have to move." And everybody takes it, and of course they want you to get angry.
So they're like,
Because-
he's angry, and it's like, yeah, because I'm blind right now.
Yeah, they want you to be angry, because if you're angry, then now they have photos that it's just like, oh, Tobey Maguire is yelling at pedestrians. You're literally causing like a dangerous scenario with the traffic right now by blinding somebody while they're trying to drive.
Personal privacy, they're still humans. I think the Kate Middleton thing though is just like one example of like many weird things happening in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many unexplainable, and like my favorite question is Mercury in retrograde? Because if everything is
Which
super
planet is in
messed up right
retrograde,
now,
right?
yeah, something's wrong, something's off, and I'll even like message my little friends that are into that, and I'm like, is Mercury in retrograde? And they're like, not right now. Why? And I'm like, well, I have nothing else to
Like,
blame
shit.
for what's going on in the world. So I thought the Kate Middleton thing
You're like,
was,
shit, this one might be me.
yeah, right. But I'm like, I guess we'll see.
I think that with a lot of that, it makes you like just imagine where life would be again if we didn't have technology. You know, if there weren't people chasing you around for news stories and all these things.
All they could do is read about you in the newspaper.
Yeah, well, it's just like 10, 15 years ago, you know, it wasn't as crazy.
I think
as it
that's
is
why the
today.
Zodiac got away.
You know, like you think there was like one situation that I saw, or well, actually it ties in directly with our topic tonight. So our topic, we wanted to talk tonight about the movie Leave the World Behind.
That movie fucked me up.
Just spoiler warning ahead. We are going to spoil like the entire movie. So if you haven't seen it, I apologize, but this is as far as you should probably go in the episode.
We're going to pretend to be movie critics for a minute.
But what I was saying is it ties so directly into kind of the abnormality of how attached people are to technology today. So right away, fast forwarding a little bit, we're going to jump all around this movie. It's not going to be in the best order.
I mean, the movie
But-
kind of itself did that, so
It does. Well, in a sense, it kind of follows like a
For
rough
sure.
timeline.
for sure. But
But
if you're not paying super
what I'm-
close attention, you get lost.
What I'm thinking about right now is, remember the boat scene where the boat is beaching on the
Yes.
shore, and how many people are just standing there and just filming it. It's just the weirdness of the situation that when you think people would be reacting and doing all these things to it, like nowadays people just stand there and film. So it's like weird because it makes me think about all these other horror movies and all these other situations and imagining like, hey, if there was somebody there to help, what are the odds that they'll just stand there and film you?
That's a really crazy and creepy thought.
It's weird, right? And it's like, it kind of gives you a little bit of
Like,
chills.
I hope you're going to give me a hand up.
Because
and not just
now it's like when you
film me.
see somebody, it's like, are you going to film me dying? Am I going to be the next viral video, or are you going to help me?
That reminds me of that urban legend movie
Mm-hmm.
where one of the guys is literally being killed in like front of everybody. And everybody's just laughing and dancing to the music.
Oh, yeah, because they think it's a skit.
Yeah, they think it's a skit. And so I wonder how much of now, if I saw someone getting murdered in front of me, would I be like, I don't think
You
I
don't
would.
know how- yeah,
I
you
wouldn't
would-
film it clearly, but I would be really confused.
Mm-hmm. It'd take a little bit to kind of get you into that like fight or flight.
Yeah.
Like whether or not it's definitely a lot of uncertainty, especially with like how far like some prank people are going nowadays. They'll do some crazy shit.
So I don't like 100% blame the people that are sitting there on their phones, but it is I think that symbolizes how much we are connected via technology. And if you took technology away, how
What's
connected
gonna happen?
are we really?
You know, how out of the loop are you going to be without being able to look like, for me, my source of news for the most part is Reddit. When I wake up in the morning, And in the very early groggy minutes, like one of the first things I open is Reddit, and I just scroll through like the popular page and seeing just what's going on in the world. And that's where I get a lot of my topics. I'll see stuff on TikTok, but it's imagining nowadays not having that technology and how isolated you would be. Our world used to be so small 10, 15 years ago when it wasn't as popular.
Well, and think of how isolated we already are from information. Mm-hmm. It's not like we 1000% are kept in the loop. If we were, there wouldn't be all these secrets, and there wouldn't be, our government's shady, period. Yeah, if we, even if we weren't connected, we'd be so much more out of the loop than we are, that we can collectively be like, hey, did you notice something's weird? And then someone goes and posts it on TikTok, or they post it on Reddit, and they're like, did everybody notice this weird thing? And collectively, we're all able to be like, yeah.
Yeah, that's how things travel.
But if we had no technology, what are we going to fucking write letters? Like,
exactly. And I'm trying to remember like exactly at which point in that movie. And again, for those that haven't seen it and that are just still interested in hearing the spoilers, like a rough idea of what the movie is what were to happen if there were a cyber attack and a full destabilization of the United States throughout the use of knocking out communication, making ideally the nation dumb, deaf, and blind. And one of those big things that they do early on in the movie is removing the access to the internet, removing access to cell phones, and stuff like that. So in this sense, though, really stopping and thinking about how attached we are to technology to figure out like what's going around.
I can't imagine that even with how limited my resource to the news is, like if I had no technology.
Yeah, no, it's definitely isolating because it goes from the simplest things, like the most animalistic nature of just knowing who is a stranger and who is not a stranger. So in the movie, like all the technology, like the phones are down, all this stuff happens. And when Julia Roberts and her family are staying in the rental house there, the owners show up. The father and daughter show up. And they're like, hey, yeah, no, we had talked on email and all these things. And it's like, now if you can't bring that up, are you going to believe these people? So just interrupting really quick, if this episode goes on too long or this discussion kind of goes on too long, we'll probably end up splitting this into 2 episodes. So just bear with us.
Actually, when we first started watching that movie, because I didn't really have a synopsis, I didn't know what to expect. And I don't think that I could have expected that movie to go the way it went. I was like, are these people going to get murdered? Like, again,
well, from the trailers, like that's what I thought it was. But I didn't even watch the trailer. From the trailers, it almost seemed more of like is this family, are they kind of behind everything? Yeah,
so again, I didn't even watch a trailer. You just said we're going to watch this movie and you put it on.
I mean, honestly, like I think how it happened for us is I had just kind of put the movie on. Because I think I saw like the Tesla scene on TikTok and then heard about like the Tesla recalls. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to give this a watch. And I honestly thought the movie sucked at first. I'm not going to lie. I thought the movie was awful. And then I started seeing more and more about the symbology of the movie and like little minor details. Like I'm such a nerd for like movie details, like the little psychological effects and stuff like that. So one of my favorite shows is The Haunting of Hill House. And the thing that drew me to that show instantly was people saying, hey, there's hidden ghosts in the background.
That show was great and super creepy.
Yeah, and it's just like there was like 100 hidden ghosts throughout like the entire thing. And they didn't totally even have anything to do with the story. They're like, it's little Easter eggs, little... hey, were you paying attention? Did you see that one? But really, one of the things, though, that really drove me to the movie was hearing about all the little extra details that were thrown in. Like the thing behind the changing pictures. And it causes, like for me, it's one of those things that I felt like there was something off when you were watching the movie. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Because it's just like, as much as I'm like analyzing the movie at the same time, I'm still just trying to experience it. Usually with these movies, I end up watching them like 4 or 5 times.
It's psychological warfare. And in the same way of, so the first time we watched the movie all the way through, I remember being like, I still don't know that I have any idea what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea what's going on. And so you, Mr. Attention to Detail, were like, did you notice the pictures in the bag?
Yeah,
I
I sit there like a little boy, just being like, clapping my hands and just being like, did you see it?
Well, and I tend to kind of multitask anytime we're watching a movie, so I definitely miss a lot of the big details. But I watched it and I was like, the second time through, I was like, those people, like, just thinking from, a psychological viewpoint, I would be so confused what was going on.
Yeah.
If they took my technology away, I'm like, are we getting attacked? Are you attacking us?
Yeah, it's like, why did all this weird stuff start happening
is
when
Jurassic
you got
Park
here?
real and you let them out? What is happening?
And that's what's happening with that family. You know, Julia Roberts and them. Ethan Hawke is a little more welcoming, you know. But Julia Roberts... Which is
a very, honestly, PSA for most people watching this. If you watch Ethan Hawke in this movie, it is a very, very abnormal role for him.
Right. He's usually
and it is very hard to... But he does a great job. I'll give him that.
Yeah. But in the movie, he's definitely more accepting. You know, he's more of the passive dad. And I think that's kind of what their character building him as. He's the passive dad.
He's just
doesn't
chilling.
really...
Yep.
He's not on edge.
He's
you know,
supportive,
he doesn't have that worry that things are going wrong. Whereas the very beginning of the movie opens up with Julia Roberts talking about how she hates people.
Oh yeah. Which I don't hate people, but basically, like, whatever she said, I was like, I can relate to that. Like, I can relate to just being like, I do not trust humans.
Yeah.
And so she's already distrusting.
Most of the atrocities in the world happen from one human to another.
Well, and you think of when the dad and daughter show up who own the house, and immediately Julia Roberts is, like, ready to throw hands. Like, she's not having
she's
it.
Just like, who is this? Like,
and
how do you know?
Ethan Hawke, his character is, like, very much... Come on in. Well, let's just let them stay. We're willing to help. And I think even there's this interesting dichotomy between the daughter and son, too. Because what they kind of show is I really, from the beginning, the daughter's skeptical.
She's not skeptical at all. She's actually the opposite. She is so
I viewed
oblivious.
her as very skeptical.
No, she is so oblivious. She's the first one that notices the deer and notices, like, some weird shit's going on. But she's so obsessed with friends.
No, she's obsessed, but she's skeptical.
No, because she's not. All she cares about, and that was one of the things, I was doing some, like, deep diving into it, and a lot of people were pointing out the fact that the only really thing that she cares about through the whole thing is finishing. She's on, like, the season finale of Friends.
But the son is completely oblivious the whole time.
Yeah, and that's part of the whole... So I saw something that was talking about the title of the movie, Leave the World Behind. So, in theory, every single time that you are on your technology, you're on your phone, computer, whatever, you are basically leaving the world behind to enter whatever realm that your headspace is currently in. And now, all of a sudden, when you take that away, it's like, now you're here, now you're present. And so, in those situations, it's showing that the son is, like, bored, doesn't really know what to do. If you notice, they both the son and the daughter have their she's got, like, her iPad or whatever with her, like, at all times, and he's got his phone. Even though both the internet's out and cell service is out, he still sleeps with his phone, and she still sleeps with Friends open, trying to watch that last episode.
Yeah, and
because that's how she finds the bunker too.
They're both definitely attached to technology, but she, from my experience of the movie, was skeptical from the very beginning. Like, she noticed, maybe not that she completely entirely knew, because what kid does know, right? Like, most kids have no idea.
Like, oblivious to the fact that it was, like, an attack, but knew that something was going on.
Something weird was going on. She was more like her mom. She was more like, I don't really trust people, kind of. Maybe she does trust people, but more of, like, that skepticism. The son, to me, modeled more of the dad in just the complete oblivious to what is happening. Like, he is like this horny teenager.
There's the one scene that I just die. So, you know, if you go to the beginning of the movie, he's on like Tinder or whatever. Right.
No, I don't even think I remember that.
So if I
part.
remember right, I think it's like Tinder or he's on dating app or something. He's talking to some girl and he said, hey, like we matched. She's only like so far away. And I laugh because first of all, it like brings me back to my little brother, to Colin. And it's like always like we'd be on like a family vacation and he'd be like, hey guys, yo, like this girl and I, we matched. She's only like 40 miles away. Can we go pick her up? You know? And so he says that. He's like, oh, this girl, I think her name was like Sarah or something.
Right.
And he goes like, hey, Sarah's only like, she's like close. Like, can we go meet up with her? And they're all like on vacation in like the nice kind of outskirts. I think it's like upstate New York.
Okay.
You know, because they're outside of the city.
Right.
But if you fast forward to, and this is like way after shit's going down, you know, he makes a comment, and we might have to watch the movie again because I was like dying laughing, and I have to point it out to you. But he goes, it's after his teeth. And he sits there and he goes, he's talking with the dad. He's like, do you think Sarah's okay? So did you never pick up on that?
No, because I must have missed the part about, number one, him being on Tinder. I do recollect him asking if he could meet up with some girl. I think I must have missed the Tinder part. Again, less attention to detail than you. And the other thing is, watching him, like, lose his teeth like popcorn.
That was trauma.
It was so traumatizing that I was like, we have a weapon that can do that? I'd rather you shot me. I do not at all want to lose my teeth like that. Yeah, that pretty much, like, I went offline after that. I was like, what just happened? I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, but I think, like, for me, with my opinion on kind of the overall message
And didn't
of the
they
show.
try to get him medical help?
No, yeah, that's what they went to
He was losing his teeth.
Yeah. Well, at that point,
there was no medicine for that.
well, at that point, they had said that he was spiking a little bit of a fever. He felt a little hot, and they wanted like antibiotics or something. But I mean, in that sense, unless you're like a medical professional, are you really going to know what you actually need?
Yeah,
like,
my teeth fell
another
out.
thing.
I'd
Like,
immediately be like, I gotta
if
go to
you
the
don't have
dentist.
access to the internet and you're not a trained medical professional, how do you even know? Like, when all these movies that it always goes and like people are like swinging by like CVS, you know, it's like the end of the world. They're rolling into CVS. They break into the pharmacy and they just grab exactly what they fucking need. Like, bullshit. I am calling bullshit because even as a paramedic, I hear these fucking meds that people talk about. And I'm like, I have no fucking idea what that is. There's no way. Like, maybe with me rolling into a pharmacy, I could grab a few things, but it's like insulin's not generally labeled as like insulin. You know, there's like Humalog and like all these different ones. And it's just like, how would you know what the fuck to grab? And so in their sense, where they're going to that neighbor's house and they're like, hey, we need antibiotics. We need something, you know, that's kind of what they're after.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. You would go wherever you had to go.
Mm-hmm. But
because obviously people's teeth don't just pop out like that. But that movie, really, the first time around, I watched it and I just remember the ending. I was like, what the hell did we just watch? And then as it progressed, I recognized that there was so much symbology in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That you just had to watch it from like a slower standpoint.
And that's what the point I was trying to make with this all was with the kids, you know, they don't really realize that they're getting attacked.
No.
You know, it's such a separate world. And if you watch the movie again, or if you're watching it for the first time, really paying attention to the dynamics of the father and the daughter, and then Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts. Like, they're in a whole different section of this struggle and this conflict than the son and daughter are. Because they're both sitting there still swimming every day, like doing all these things, still playing. You know, she thinks, like, the daughter has seen deer and thinks it's a little weird, you know, but the son is so oblivious to everything going on.
The son and the dad.
But then everybody else is like seeing shit, you know, like fucking the one guy, the owner of the house, like, he literally saw a plane fall from the sky.
And the daughter of that guy too, like, she knows something's up.
Well, yeah, and because the what seems to be the point too is the father and the daughter definitely kind of have a little more insight on kind of like cyber attacks, because they bring up examples of like, oh yeah, like the I love you bomb, or the fact that power grids get hacked all the time, you know, like the power outages can be caused by a hacker in all these situations. And so you have that kind of obliviousness from the Vacation family, you know,
like
but the only skepticism is from Julia Roberts. Everybody else is kind of just in La La Land surviving, and Julia Roberts is over here like, what the hell? But we had brought up the fact too that Ethan Hawke's character is very much kind of open to wanting to help, kind of be like, oh yeah, welcome, like come on into your house, you know, like all this stuff. But there's the one scene where he runs into the Spanish speaking lady.
Which, by the way, have you listened to
the translation? Yeah. I've listened to the translation. I don't recall exactly what it was, but it was like she was saying that... She talks about
the plane too.
She was saying that she saw like the drone or a plane dropping red, or she saw a plane dropping red gas, but we learn is flyers. It's a drone dropping the red flyers.
Okay.
She is asking him for a cell phone, and just talking all these situations. But again, with this separation of technology, if you have somebody speaking another language than you, especially in a sense of panic, 5, 10, 15 minutes earlier, you know, he's like willing to be like, okay, yeah, come on in. Like, let's figure this out together.
Well, my dad's neighbors are South Korean.
Yeah, he ended up driving off. You know, he just panics. Like, he's like, I don't know how to help you.
Because he doesn't know what she's saying. And so my dad's neighbors are South Korean. Mm-hmm. And the only way they communicate is by
Google Translate, because they don't speak English at all. Mm-hmm. And my dad obviously does not speak South Korean. Yeah, so it's just really that separation of that technology and kind of that unease of just like the simplest things. Like in this situation, you have a little bit of chaos sprinkled everywhere. You have unknown kind of going on around you, and then throw in just the uncertainty of not knowing what somebody is saying, that loss of communication. You know, because if he was able to just kind of like pull his phone out and just be like, here, like talk into this and like translate, he can be like, wait, you saw like a plane dropping red stuff? Like, okay. Like getting a little bit more of the information, you know, because she's talking about how she hadn't seen anybody all day, you know.
Which was out of character for his character. Mm-hmm. Because in the whole movie, they portray him as this guy that's just, again, very welcoming, very kind, extroverted. And in this moment, this woman is asking for help, essentially, mm-hmm. and he just panics and leaves because he doesn't understand what she's saying. And so...
Well, it's like he's lost. He doesn't know where he is.
But it's very out of character.
Without GPS, he has no form of navigation.
Which, I'm guilty for that. If I didn't have GPS, I couldn't get to most of my doctor's appointments, so...
Yeah, and so that's all... And it's all kind of what grew on me in this movie, was really when you stop and you slow down and you really think about the message of the movie and the things that are going on in it, it's all so true. You know, you think it's ridiculous, but then you're like, you slow down and you're like, whoa, if I really didn't have this stuff, of course I wouldn't be able to figure this shit out. Like, there is no hero in this. And initially, like, the ending pissed me off.
Do you think they'll come out with another one?
Part of me wants them to. You know, like, actually, like, a really big part of me wants to be like, oh, what would it have been like in the city? Yeah. Because towards the end of the movie, they show you that snapshot of the city, like, in smoke. You know, there's, like, bombs and explosions going by. You could hear a jet rolling by.
Yeah.
But, so part of me wants to be like, okay, yeah, let's see what it occurred for a family in the city. But the other part of me is, too, just like, but also you're watching one person's accord of what happened.
It would be interesting to see what comes of this family.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, too, it's just their goal, because the neighbor had talked about the possibility of the other neighbor having a bunker, you know, like a panic room or something. They never got to it, did they? Or they did? They did, because the daughter found it. She starts watching Friends. We already know that Julia Roberts and the other girl were shortly behind her because they could see the front of the house. They see the tire tracks leading up to it. And so with the end of the movie, where a lot of people are upset that it just kind of suddenly ends, I don't believe there's really much more to their story other than them surviving in a bunker together. You know, because the father is just kind of talking to Ethan Hawke, and he's just like, I need you to level on this with me. Like, are we going to be in this together, or are you going to turn on me? Because him kind of knowing the overarching plan and kind of hearing about this way of destabilizing a government and knowing that the final step is everybody turning on each other, the Civil War happening, all this stuff, he levels and he's like, are you going to be with me? If so, we'll do this together. And so those three know about the bunker. And we know that Julia Roberts and the other girl are shortly behind the daughter, and she had already found the bunker. So outside of that, I don't really imagine there being too much more to the actual movie other than them staying in a bunker together. Because it had food, it had water, electricity, it had all the things that you need to survive.
For how long?
Or at least for things to level out.
Right.
So that about does it for time. So catch us up on our socials. We've been pretty live on Twitch lately, as well as we are kind of expanding and adding some new kind of short stories, as well as just kind of some fun creative writing online to our little Canva.
And I'm actively on Twitter and Threads quite a bit, and I interact and definitely like to movie review and talk about pretty
All
much
things strange and
anything.
mundane.
Yeah, with everybody on there. So you can catch us on there at Strange and Mundane.
But thanks for tuning in. See you on the next week.
See ya.